Well, for more analysis of the Italian economy and its outlook, my colleague Rachelle Akuffo spoke with Bruno Pellegrino. He's a graduate researcher in business economics at the University of California, Los Angeles. And she started by asking him how Italy got saddled with its current debt situation.
Yeah, so the problem with Italy is that there is a long-term growth problem. Italy's economy has not been growing in GDP per capita terms for the past 20 years. It's mostly a productivity issue, and that is definitely not helping Italy's public finances. Moreover, there's been political uncertainty surrounding the 2019 budget. The European Union rejected the initial draft for the 2019 budget by the new government, and since then it has been modified. So the back and forth created, there was a bit of a fight between the government and the European Union, and that was it caused Italy's government bond yields to rise significantly.
And we certainly saw with all that back and forth, they did end up with a deal, although the EU called it basically a borderline acceptable budget. In terms of then effectiveness, is this essentially just kicking the can down the road, or will it be effective?
So what the draft budget does, it introduces some measures for social cohesion, and that's certainly a positive thing. I think social cohesion is important in terms of having a broader safety net, but it doesn't solve the underlying growth issues that Italy has had for a while now. So the problem is that nobody will be caring about 0.4% of budget deficit if Italy was growing at a 3.5% GDP per year, as the US is doing. So the only way that Italy can sustain its public finances in the long term is by starting to grow again. And unfortunately, I don't see the government having a long-term vision on how to address this.
So what sort of policies would need to be put in place to really get Italy on the right growth track?
So Italy has fundamentally a productivity problem. So what we see is that there are a lot of many small family-managed firms that sort of persist, and they are not using information technologies efficiently. So what will definitely benefit Italy's economy is our policies that enhance competition across firms, so that the more virtuous firms, the firms that are better managed, can grow and sort of bring a bigger contribution to Italy's economy.
Now, some analysts are saying that Italy might be the key to the next global recession. How much truth do you think there is to that?
It is possible, and here's why. You have to consider that Italy has the third largest public debt stock in the world at present, just behind the US and Japan. So it definitely has the critical mass to cause significant concern. A rescue package for Italy, if it happens, it will need to involve not just the European Stability Mechanism, but also the IMF and the European Central Bank. And that will not happen without significant financial market turmoil. So the question is whether that, when and if that happens at all.
And so in terms of who's most exposed in terms of contagion within EU members, who is really most exposed to what happens in Italy?
So I will look at who's growing the least right now. And in recent times, Greece has had the slowest GDP growth among the European countries that are most susceptible to contagion. Thankfully, Spain, Portugal have been growing at a moderately fast pace. So I think Greece is most vulnerable due to its still very high public debt to GDP ratio and sluggish growth.
And in the longer term, as we give the outlook for Italy's economy, how do you see 2019 shaping up?
So I basically see Italy undershooting its GDP growth projections for next year. And the reason for that is we need to look at short-term surveys like the Purchasing Managers Index. And what the Purchasing Managers indices show us, both in non-manufacturing and the service sector, they point towards a slight contraction in the fourth quarter of 2018, and that is likely to persist in the beginning of 2019. So 2019 is not starting on the right footing for Italy from a growth point of view.